exist well just being famous. That doesn't give me any sort of satisfactory feeling. The tabloids like me. I don't know what their deal is. I am some source of interest to them. I don't know why. Whatever is thought of as cool or whatever, I hate it immediately. I mean, I've never capitalized on who I am in any way. I've never run around trying to make Presley perfume. I'm not that person instinctively. So a song that makes reference to that part of my life and who I am in that way. It's like, for me, it's a song for me. For others, it's that association of, oh, she's talking about Memphis in the grave in the damn backyard, that's Graceland, and oh yeah, that's where her family is buried, and oh, that she's talking about their dad, and she's talking about Graceland and Memphis, and there it is. And I can't, for me, it's just a song. He explained to her what Scientology was, and then I think the next day she kind of told me in the car on the way home from school what it was. And I remember exactly at that moment going, that's definitely for me. I might not do it right this minute, but it sounded really interesting to me, and I responded immediately. It kept me, it's the reason that I am, that I know who I am, and I am comfortable with myself, and am relatively sane. I find it very fascinating how people love to talk about how I had this drug problem. Let's just get into that now, because that is the most insane. Like every time I read things and it's like drug this, drug, drugs, she was this, she was that, you know. I had like a 2-year, 3-year period where I was experimenting when I was from 14, 15, 16. Normal, typical age range, time period. I haven't touched a drug since any of that. Now, I'm 37 years old right now. Can we get over this? I was a lost soul for a while. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no purpose in my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. And, finding myself, I was doing things that were destructive. And it was a 3 or 4 year period. And I had basically just had it doing that. I just got sick of it. It was really simple. I was never addicted to anything. She basically threw me out in the middle of the night. One night, get out. She drove me to the church one night, sort of dumped me off to them, and they were kind of like, what do we do with her? It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was in hysterics because she threw me out. But I was actually happy about it because I got independent at that point and ended up having like, it's a nice building, and at the time they hadn't renovated it yet, but I did live there in a really tiny little apartment, and had my own apartment and had my freedom and lived in Hollywood for a little while. Now, let's not embellish the Hollywood thing because I was pretty designated to an area there. I never really was all over the place, but I did live there for about 8 months. Somehow in my life, I knew at 20 years old, actually earlier, that Danny was the man I was having my children with. And I don't know how I knew that. I just knew he was the one, he was the right one. And he was going to be the person that I would be okay to be connected to for the rest of my life, regardless what happens with us. It was like this prophetic thing I knew at, 19. That's what having children allowed me to see, was that I am responsible for this being, for this person right here, and how they grow up and how they see things. I feel like anybody could relate to that song, whether they like it or it's too mean, or it's not nice, or it's whatever it is. It is. It's not nice, and you're not always going to feel nice in life, and you are going to be angry, and people are going to piss you off. And yeah, I think that people would be, if you really want to hear a good angry go to hell song, that's a good one. Now, yes, I am who I am. I understand all that. It's connected, and I have to break through whatever else in the hell I have to break through. There was never any lack of love or any lack of appreciation for the other. I became more adamant that whoever I'm with has to be okay with him. And even though that was a lot to ask, it ended up that he has a house on this property as well, which, is really amazing. Now he's in my band, which I was trying to get him to do the last time around, but he didn't want anybody thinking that he wanted to be on my coattails or wanted to do anything. He's such a gypsy and such a pirate himself, and he's so rebellious. Whoever thinks whatever of me, because based on, what they read in the tabloids. So, or who I married, or who I didn't marry, which I will never apologize for. I had to go through what I had to go through. I thought I explained myself kind of okay in that, I don't know what to say other than what I already said. And then hopefully we can move on now. Anyway, he brought her to the studio, and he sat her down in my lap, and I was sitting there playing with her, and all of a sudden I just became overwhelmed with this sort of appreciation and love for I have a very small circle of friends that are very close that I sort of feel like I live my life. I live in a compound where there's several people that live on it with me, and I'm really happy like that, living like that, you know? It's funny because I was just watching this documentary that's coming out on my father, and I realized that is something that was absolutely handed down. Like, I've basically got a mini Graceland mafia set up. Not really. I mean, he had much more. I was also raised in that as well, so it wasn't like, that's not, you know, I was used to that. I was used to being at Graceland with tons of people, and I knew them all, and it was something that was very, that I was very comfortable around at a young age. But I didn't realize that that's kind of what I've, you know, subconsciously built for myself as well. Can't help but notice that I've never seen a good product of psychiatric drugging. I don't believe in drugging people. I don't believe especially in doing that to kids. I know that that's all very popular in our current culture, but I am not interested. It makes me very upset. I walked right into the eye of the storm, and I found it very fascinating that, you know, these congressmen were thankful that I came there. What is basically happening is that we are relying on a chemical to change the mood of a child. At least one of these drugs is more potent than cocaine, and we are turning them into drug addicts at a very young age. My hope is that the committee will recommend legislation that prevents school personnel from coercing parents into placing their children onto mind-altering drugs. They become dependent on them. I was on a huge high because it was like, they were thankful. They were like, you know, they listened. We made changes, and from that testifying, you know, we changed the state of affairs in schools. When I'm going out here to promote this record, I have to now explain to you all these things that I've done in my life. Because I have this whole thing that started, and, you know, this whole image of the tabloids like me. I don't know what their deal is with me. I really don't. And I also never realized how many people read them and how often, how big of a circulation they have. People read and they believe these things. That's why they're doing what they do, and I am some source of interest to them. I don't know why. Like, when I'm writing, I'm sitting here going, I'm gonna write about the tabloids, I'm gonna write about the paparazzi, or I'm gonna be upset at, you know, being a celebrity. I handed her the lyrics, and she read it, and then she was, you know, in shock, and she was crying, and then she wanted to hear it a few more times, and then, you know, that became her favorite song, as it would. And then I, based on that, you know, and how happy it made her and how emotional she got, I decided to try and make it go onto the record. Aside from being very grateful of who I am and, you know, and proud of that, I want to feel like I'm contributing. I can just live, you know, I don't exist well just being famous or just being a celebrity or being recognized or being in the, you know, rag mags or whatever, you know. That doesn't give me any sort of satisfactory feeling inside. I want to feel like I'm contributing to people. To Whom It May Concern was an album in progress for about 5 years. I think that one was the same thing that it is to me now. Music is music. It's just always affected me. And I wanted to be able to try to affect others with it. I had to sort of stumble my way through everything. You know, talk shows for the first time, you know, this, that, live, people staring at me, people looking at me while I'm singing, which I had never had before. And in the end, I kind of forgot why I did it all, because it was just like, can you stop with this? Like, do I have to? At first it's live on Good Morning America first gig, and then, you know, America, not just Good Morning Wichita, but Good Morning America. So I'm like, can we have some kind of ladder here? And then I go from that to, like, you know, other talk shows, to this, to that, to, okay, now you're going to do Divas Live, and you're going to do a song that you've never sung before in your life, and you're going to be on stage with all these amazing singers, and I'm going, okay, I should have played small clubs for a while, you know, and done it the right way. And then at the end was when I actually got to see, when I was on tour, what it was all about, which was people were coming to hear the songs. Yes, there was a few, you know, gawking factors, you know, particularly at casinos. If we had to do casino shows, you know, they just get a free ticket and they think, oh, Presley, so, you know, I'm going to come watch her. Or, hey, maybe she's going to wear a white jumpsuit, or I don't know what they're thinking. But, you know, they basically kind of come, and that tends to be when that's high, but those gigs pay a lot, so they help pay for the tour. And that was the one time I went, okay, This is not fun. But it is fun to see people in an audience singing my songs. And knowing that by the way they're singing them and by their expressions on their faces that it has moved them and they know them and they're serious about it. Those faces make me continue. The second verse is, you know, can we film the operation? Is the head dead yet? And all the boys in the newsroom have a running bet. Get the widow on the set. We need dirty laundry. That describes to me exactly what the state of affairs is right now in America. Television entertainment. Our source of entertainment is watching other people in their darkest hour and watching other people's demise. That's what we do. And I think that that's what that song is about. That's why I picked it, because it's so out of control right now that it's an important subject matter to bring up. And in the video, it will be shown that that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about myself. I'm not saying, oh, I'm a whiny, woe is me, I'm a celebrity and I'm so upset because there's cameras. No, I don't like them when I'm not asking for them. But that's not at all the reason that I did this song. So I just didn't want that to be misinterpreted in any way. Whatever is thought of as cool or whatever, I hate it immediately. So I have to say that I do come up with my best songs when I'm angry at that subject. A lot of them were on the last record, and funnily enough, people thought that those were about relationships, and 9 out of 10 they weren't. It's, you know, usually me like raising my middle finger to ideas that I don't like or agree with, or groups of people, or a group thought. I really know who I am, and I'm very much an individual, and I don't like to just rock the boat because it's fun. I just don't like to be part of a status quo. I did sort of make my own thumbprint. Yeah, it was a sloppy one, and it might be even sloppier the next round, but at least it was mine.